Welcome to another episode of Buy, Avoid or Wait for Sale, and in this video I'll be reviewing Xbox's biggest and most anticipated launch of the year, Halo Infinite. Now this was going to be a review for both the campaign and the multiplayer, but now that they've actually added some updates to the multiplayer, I may do a separate review for that just to be fair. So this review is just for the campaign, which I played on PC Game Pass. Right, let's get into it. So let's start off with the campaign. The game starts off with Master Chief floating in space after something happens that I won't mention to avoid spoilers, until he's found by a UNSC pilot known as Echo 216. The pilot wants to flee, but Master Chief wants to continue the fight against the Banished on Zeta Halo. As shown in revealed gameplay clips, he locates an AI known as the Weapon, who was created to delete Cortana, but for some reason didn't self-delete like she was supposed to. Now, if you had trouble following any of that, you, like myself, probably didn't play the last couple of games. In fact, out of the Halo series, I've only completed Halo 1 and then Halo 3 in co-op on Xbox 360. I never completed Halo 4, and the rest didn't release on PC at launch, and by then I was already gaming on PlayStation. So the question is, can you still enjoy this game if you haven't been following the franchise? The simple answer is yes for the gameplay, but you will struggle to understand what is going on in some parts. There's actually two stories going on in this game. The Banished hunting down Chief, which I really wasn't paying much attention to, as that part of the story really wasn't that interesting to me. As far as I was concerned, it was just giving me more aliens to shoot. The second part of the story was much more interesting, and it was about what happened to Cortana to result in her being deleted. This part of the story was actually done really well and was seen through echoes of her memories. I do think they should have done a previously on Halo video covering the events of the last game or two, which players could watch or skip at the beginning of the game, similar to what was done at the beginning of Resident Evil Village. But if you're really interested in what took place before, you can have a look on YouTube. Also, when exploring, you will find audio logs which will help fill in some of the gaps in the story. These will actually beep when you get close to them. So let's talk about the things I liked about the campaign. When Halo Infinite was released, I saw a bunch of tweets on Twitter about how the game could be completed in 6 hours. I'm sure it can, if being played on easy difficulty and avoiding the side content. But if you plan on playing on at least heroic difficulty, it's going to take you 15 to 20 hours to beat. 15 to 20 hours is the sweet spot for a single player one and done game length. It's not too short, but it doesn't outstay its welcome. It took me just under 16 hours to beat the game, and I didn't finish off all the side missions, but these are still available to be completed after beating the main story. The best thing about the game is the gameplay. It's a lot of fun, action-packed, and can have you feeling like a one-man army when you get into a decent battle, which will happen a lot, as the enemies are really aggressive. Most of the weapons feel great, but I did mostly stick to the UNSC weapons. My go-to weapons in the game were the assault rifle, the Bulldog, which is a revolving barrel shotgun, and the Mangler, which is a powerful handgun with a revolving barrel. For the alien weapons, the Heat Wave was one of my favorites. The gun shoots out projectiles vertically or horizontally with the alt fire, and will ricochet off walls. When you get a kill with it, you'll see it vaporize the enemy. The skewer is also great, as it gives you a one-shot kill on most enemies and will also blow up most vehicles. Think of it as a heavy-duty spear gun. The weapon I had the most difficulty mastering was the Cinder Shot. It's basically like a grenade launcher. The problem I had was most of the times I would get direct hits and not get a kill. So instead I would end up bouncing it on the ground near my target to end up killing the target or getting a multi-kill. It will take some more getting used to, but the game does have a decent selection of weapons to choose from. You've got equipment, which is useful in battles for different situations. The threat sensor lets you see enemies through walls, and also elites, which are using active camo. There's deployable shields, which I've heard is pretty useless on legendary difficulty. The thrusters for dodging enemy attacks, but let's be real here. The best equipment added to the game, and definitely the most versatile, is the Grapple Shot. Funny thing is that when it was first revealed, I thought to myself, here we go again. Another game throwing it in a grappling hook that doesn't need to be there. And then I played the game, and it's the item that I've used the most. Here's all the things you can do with this one item. Okay, you got Traversal, which is obviously the main purpose of it, especially useful for working your way up high cliffs, but also useful to get yourself out of danger in battle, which also makes the thrusters useless because you can cover a larger distance, and makes you not want to use the deployable cover because it's quicker to just get out of the way. Grappling enemies. So just like the grapple hook shotgun in Doom Eternal, you can shoot your grapple shot into your enemies and launch yourself towards them. You'll automatically hit them with a melee attack when you reach them, which is especially useful if you're using an energy sword. Once you've upgraded it, you'll also be able to give them an electric shock when you grapple them, which will stop them from shooting at you while being grappled. It can be used to grapple weapons and items. Now, if you shoot it towards guns, grenades, explosive coils and other items, it will pull them towards you. This was especially useful when I ran out of ammo but was taking cover and would just grapple a new weapon. But I use it a lot to grapple those explosive coils found in every battle arena. And finally, jacking vehicles. The grapple jack is my favorite use for it. If you get close enough to an enemy controlled vehicle like a ghost or banshee, you can grapple the vehicle and kick them out of it. I use this a lot. The inclusion of the grapple shot was definitely my favorite item, and it's one of the best uses of a grappling hook I've seen in any game. On PC, selecting different items is as simple as quickly pressing one of the numbers. I have heard that it's a little more awkward with a controller, but this didn't affect me. They also have their own individual cooldown, which is useful as you can switch to another item while you're waiting for one to cool down. But when you upgrade the grapple shot, it actually cools down in seconds. I also like that they give you the grapple shot from the beginning of the game, while everything else needs to be unlocked as you progress through the story. I mentioned that each of the items can be upgraded. Now, this is done by finding Spartan cores, which is one of the incentives to explore the open world. You can also find armor skins, which can be equipped in multiplayer. Another thing I liked was the dialogue from the enemies. They will talk trash to you while in battle. The grunts are the funniest. You'll see some of them running away while waving their hands in the air after you've killed their friends, and you'll see other kamikaze grunts that will run at you screaming with 2 plasma grenades in hand. The enemy variety is actually good and will provide you with a challenge if you're not playing on easy mode. The elites that switch on active camo can be bastards and can also be tough to take down. And they have energy swords as a secondary weapon, which is a one-hit kill if you let them get close enough to use it. And hunters will eat up all your ammo like it was candy and still keep on coming. They're basically like walking tanks with heavy armor and a shield to block most attacks. And they like to travel in twos, as if fighting one wasn't tough enough. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to facing these guys on legendary difficulty. So now it's time to talk about the things I didn't like about this game. I think what needs to be mentioned first is that this really didn't need to be an open world game, as the linear parts of the game are actually the best parts. The open world in this game just feels wasted, as there's not much to do in it, and it looks dull and lifeless. Every part of the map that I covered looks the same as the last, and this is because there's only one biome. I'm not going to comment too much on the graphics because I wasn't able to play this game at max settings, but the character models for the brutes look really bad. Craig looks like he was taken from an Xbox 360 game. I also found that the indoor linear areas look much better than when you go outside into the open world. I actually started experiencing frame rate issues when I first entered the open world portion of the game, and this had me making some adjustments. Now, most land vehicles feel awkward to drive. The Groundhog feels really light and will flip over really easily. The Ghost is actually useful in combat situations, as you can easily dodge enemy fire and projectiles and return fire and run them over while using your boosters. But the rocky terrain makes it useless for getting where you need to when you run out of flat surfaces to travel. There honestly aren't enough flying vehicles available to you from early. You can unlock a Wasp, but I never actually managed to do it before I completed the campaign, so getting around the map was very annoying at times. Also, there's no waypoint to help you navigate the map. You can select missions on the map which will give you the option to set a waypoint, but when in a land vehicle there are no visible indicators directing you to your destination. Then when you add the verticality to the map, I ended up getting lost and annoyed a lot in this game. Also, restarting side missions doesn't work properly. I wanted to make videos from the side missions, but to save time with editing, I actually tried to complete some of these missions without dying. When I did get killed, I tried restarting the mission, but instead of restarting the side mission, I ended up being transported back to the main mission every time. This would often be very far from my current location and made it very annoying if I struggled to get there in the first place. Now, the side missions feel more like repetitive filler to try and justify this being an open world game. There's really only three types of side missions found in the open world. There's capturing forward operating bases, or FOBs. Think of capturing outposts in a Ubisoft game, and that's basically it. When you capture one, you get a new fast travel point on the map and can also use it to collect unlocked weapons and vehicles. The second type of mission is basically bases where UNSC soldiers are being held captive. Basically like capturing a FOB but on a larger scale. Marines that have been rescued will fight alongside you while you're capturing the base. And the third type is the high value target missions, which are basically bounty hunting missions. These missions are really the only ones that give you any kind of variety and will unlock modified weapons that you won't find anywhere else on the map. For example, I unlocked a version of the rocket launcher that had homing rockets. But that's really it for missions that you'll find in this game, which really makes you ask the question of what was the point? Also, the AI for the UNSC Marines is bad. They're just there to hide the fact that co-op should have been included in the game. They are useless at backing you up in a fight and are really just there to distract the enemies temporarily, but they get killed really quickly and easily. At the FOBs, you can see that the game was designed for co-op because there are 4 weapon benches for the team to select which weapons they want. The supporting cast was kind of weak as well. There's no real character development for the pilot that flies you around. He's just there, acts like a coward for most of the game, and is really just a forgettable character. The weapon, aka bootleg katana, actually wasn't as annoying as I thought she would be, so I have no real issues with her. The main villain is kind of a Saturday morning cartoon type of villain, which actually works well for the game, but I ended up mistaking him for another character from the beginning of the game, which again I'm not going to mention due to spoilers. So now for the verdict. Should you buy, avoid, or wait for sale? Yes, it is available on Game Pass, so if you're a subscriber, it's definitely worth playing, but this is more of a question for those who prefer to own their games, as it's around the £55 to £60 price range, and you're only playing for the campaign and not the multiplayer, as that was given away for free. On top of that, the game was released with content cut from it to be added later. There's no co-op, even though the game seems like it was designed for 4-player co-op. You can't replay missions, which they said they'll add later. It feels like they're missing a lot of side story content as well, which would have stopped the open world from feeling so boring. And there were reports that a lot of content was cut from the game to make sure it could be launched on time. That being said, I did have a good time playing it for just under 16 hours because I love first-person shooters. The battles were challenging, and the last couple of boss fights are definitely going to stress me out when I play it on Legendary. And like I said earlier, it does do a great job of making you feel like a one-man army when you get into a decent battle. If you're not worried about any of the things that are missing from the game, then yes, you should definitely buy Halo. If you do prefer to play Halo games in co-op, and if you're waiting for the complete package and not just the not at launch edition, it wouldn't hurt you to wait for a sale. Alternatively, you could just sign up to Game Pass and play it there. Considering everything I've mentioned, I'm giving Halo Infinite Campaign a 7 out of 10, and we'll talk about the multiplayer later. Now that you've made it to the end of the video, please leave it a like because it really does help me out. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and check out some of my other content. Thanks for watching.